Hello students, this is Siddharth Mehta. I am English and Verbal Mentor at Career Launcher and author of Critical Reasoning Nuggets for Law Exams. Today I will be discussing one passage that I posted in my Telegram channel yesterday, and I will be discussing the solution of that passage. By the way, if you are not the part of that Telegram channel and you want to join it, then I am sharing the link in the description box and you can join that. If you are preparing for any of the law entrance exam, PLAT, IELTS, LSAT, in which critical reasoning and English are important part, you can join the group. Right. So let us begin. So this was the passage that I posted yesterday in my channel. If you have not gone through this passage before, I will suggest you that you stop your video, go through it once, and of course then I will be explaining. So listen to my explanation once you have read the passage. So you can stop your video, and if you have already read it, then you can of course move ahead and watch my solution. Right. So let us begin this passage. I have picked this passage from this wonderful website aeon.com, which has collection of a lot of good articles. So let us discuss what is the key idea of the passage here. Right. So the first paragraph, what does it talk about? Being a child shouldn't mean being treated as mediocre thinker, but the idea that children are capable of careful thinking about abstract issues is difficult for many adults to accept, and the prospect of children doing philosophy poses its own unique challenges. So the first paragraph basically talks about, according to the author, child shouldn't be treated as mediocre thinker, but this is the author's view. But normally what happens, that idea that children are capable of careful thinking about abstract issue is difficult for many adults to accept. So this is the first line is author's view, and what happens generally author is telling us in the second line. Right. So this is the first paragraph about that we shouldn't treat children as mediocre thinker, but it is difficult for most of the adults to accept that they can think about the abstract issues. Now let us move to the second paragraph. Curious about the aspects of the world that most adults take for granted, children demonstrates a seemingly instinctive capacity to ponder the most basic elements of life and society. Yet, despite our awareness that children wonder and ask questions, the deeper meaning of what they have to say is regularly dismissed by adults. We react to their big questions or expression of philosophical thoughts by remarking on how cute or amusing they are, or by dismissing them, not by taking them seriously. So this is the second paragraph. So what does this talk about? This basically talks about that we all know that children are curious, and by instinct they ask some very elementary questions about life and society. And still we adults are aware that children are like that, but when they ask deeper meaning questions, when they ask philosophical question, what is the reaction of the adults simply say that how cute the question is, or how cute the kid is, or simply dismiss them. So these are the normal reaction that adults do, but they don't answer the question. So they dismiss the question by saying these things. Right. So that's what the second paragraph is about. Now, the third paragraph, adults underestimate children's capacity in general. So it says that children's capacity in general is underestimated, and their capacities for serious thought in particular, especially the serious thought capacity, is underestimated. Our perception of children are largely governed by developmental preconception, and especially by the belief that children are moving from being relatively incapable beings to eventually becoming capable adults. So what it says is that we have a preconceived notion about the children, that they cannot ask serious questions. We anyways underestimate their capacity. That is, we means adults. Adults anyways underestimate the capacity, and after underestimating the capacity, it also says that it comes from a preconceived notion, and we think is the children as relatively, important word is relatively, incapable, and they are soon going to become adults. So there is a transition that most of the adults believe that the children from relatively incapable, they will eventually become capable adults. Right. So there is a notion about the children's capacity is specifically related to the serious question. These are the important things in the third paragraph. Now the next paragraph. Even as childhood is idealized as an idyllic phase of life, children themselves have been cast as what psychologists and social label human becomings. Okay. So psychologists and sociologists actually call children human becoming as opposed to human beings. So they are not yet human beings. Children are in the process of becoming fully human, but are not yet there yet. So it's simply repetition of what was mentioned in the previous line. By contrast, adults are understood as complete human beings. As a result, we see children as defective adults in the world of cognitive scientist Alison Gopnik. So what does this passage paragraph says? This paragraph says that most of the psychologists and sociologists, they believe that that the childhood is human becoming, and they refer children as human becomings rather than human beings. And contrast to that, adults are considered to be complete human beings. It is considered that children are in the process of becoming fully human, not yet fully human, and adults are fully human. And then author has quoted one particular scientist who calls the children defective adults, right? Now, there is some blank here. And then it comes, for one, Western culture prizes autonomy, which places children at disadvantage. Now, perhaps this looks like reason of why this has happened, because for one word is used, right? So one reason is that Western culture prizes autonomy, which places children at disadvantage. Autonomy means independence. So young children, of course, can't be fully autonomous because of their youth. They have much to learn, multiple skills to develop before they take full control of their life. Because of this dependence, children are in subordinate position with their ideas and perspective given little weightage. So this is again, last paragraph gives the reason why children are considered like this, because they are dependent on someone. They are not yet fully grown, and of course, when they are young, they are dependent for their physical, financial, and emotional need on someone, and that is why they are not taken too seriously, and their ideas and perspectives are given little weightage, right? So that's the entire passage about. If I have to write, or if I have to tell you what's the main idea of the passage is, according to the author, children shouldn't be treated as the mediocre thinker, but they are treated like that because of the preconceived notion in the society that they are not yet mature adult. And even the sociologist and psychologist are saying that they are in the phase of transition, and the primary reason for that is given as the children are dependent, they are not autonomous, right? So this is the entire gist of the passage. Okay, so let us see what the question is. So those who have not solved the question, they can again stop their video. I will be showing the questions in 5 slides. So all the time you can stop your video and attempt the question and then look at my solution, right? So the question number 1 is, as per the passage, what will be the attitude of an adult towards a child who asks, why do we have to die? Now, it clearly comes from the second paragraph, because the second paragraph talks about how we deal with the serious questions that children ask, how the adults deal with, a typical adult deals with the serious question that a child asks. So let us again refer to this paragraph and try to understand. Curious about aspects of the world that most adults take for granted, children demonstrate seemingly instinctive capacity to ponder the most basic elements of life and society. Yet, despite our awareness that children wonder and ask questions, the deeper meaning of what they have to say is regularly dismissed by the adults. So we know that children will ask the most basic elements, or the question related to the most basic elements of life and society, and this is one very basic thing that everybody has to go through, but somehow adults think that this is a too serious an issue, a too deeper issue with too deeper a meaning. So that's what is mentioned here. Yet despite our awareness that children wonder and ask questions, the deeper meaning of what they have to say is regularly dismissed by adults. So when such questions, which are perhaps basic in nature but have deeper meaning, adults dismiss such questions. How do we adults react? We react to children's big question or expression of philosophical thoughts. This is a big question, this is a philosophical thought, the question that's given, by remarking on how cute or amusing they are, or by dismissing them, comma, not by taking them seriously. So this is the usual reaction. Either they will be dismissed by saying, oh, how cute you are, how amusing you are, you have asked such a good question, or it will be dismissed because by saying that the kid doesn't understand what she is asking for, asking about, and hence the question remains unanswered, not by taking them seriously. So either way, what an adult will do is either not answer by saying the kid is very amusing, the kid is very amusing or cute, or by dismissing and saying that the kid doesn't know what she is asking for, but the adult is not answering the question. So let us look at the option and let us say which cannot be the answer. The adult will be surprised with the child for asking such a profound question. So it doesn't tell me that adult will be surprised. Okay, so I can say this is not the answer, because adult is not surprised here. Adult is simply saying that either the child doesn't know what she is asking for, or it is really cute of the child for asking such a question, right? So I don't get the surprised element is mentioned anywhere. B says the adult will be indifferent towards the kid, knowing that the child is immature. Looks like a good answer choice. C, the adult will shirk the question and will try to cover up for shirking the question. Shirk means try to avoid or escape. So adult is not answering the question and will try to cover up, and will also explain why why adult is escaping the question. So yeah, this again looks a good choice, because that is what the adult is doing. Adult is not taking the child seriously and either saying that you are amusing or either saying that you don't understand what you are asking for, but the adult is not answering the question. The adult will answer the question with the best of ability. Definitely this is not the answer. So if you know that the common traps that examiner set, and here I am the examiner, so I have framed the question. So this is the NT, something that is directly something which is mentioned I mean, the passage says opposite of this particular option. This option is D. So passage says opposite of this particular option, right? This, as I ruled it out, this is out of purview. The adult is not surprised. Now, out of these two, let us say, what is adult trying to do? Is adult indifferent? What do we mean by indifferent? Indifferent means I don't care. Yeah, this part is fine, knowing that child is immature. They say that you don't know what you are asking for. This part I am okay with. The second part, that child is immature, but definitely I can't say that adult is indifferent. So this is a bit extreme word for me, and the passage doesn't suggest that the adults are indifferent. They don't care what the child is asking for. In fact, they are caring and trying to reject what the child is asking, right? So this can't be the answer. Answer is option number C, because now you look at it, the adult will check the question, means adult is escaping the question, and also giving the cover up for why I am escaping by saying either of these two remarks, or there may be other remarks also. So right answer is option number C. Now, why I have mentioned D here, because I saw the responses in the Telegram channel, and not many people got it right. So this is a difficult question according to me then, depending upon how the students have responded. So this looks a difficult question. Many students marked B, but as I told you, B is not, the attitude of adult is not indifferent here, right? Now the second, what can be said about the organization of the passage? Right, let us see the option. Author gives his point of view, then presents argument in support of it. So yes, author has given his point of view, and has he presented arguments in support of it? In fact, no, he has not presented any argument. He has simply given what the common world believes. So this can't be the answer. Author gives his point of view, then presents general belief about that argument, and then defends his point of view. So yes, this part is fine. Author is giving his point of view. That's the first paragraph. Then he's presenting general belief about that argument, about his point of view, what others believe, and then defends his point of view. No, this part is wrong. Author has not then gone and defended his point of view, that why he is right and why others are wrong. This is not there. Third, author gives his point of view, then presents general belief about that argument, and then explains the logic behind general belief. Yes, that's what the author is doing. So answer is C. What is D? Author gives his point of view and then presents the loopholes of his point of view. So no, he has not presented the loopholes of his point of view. So this can't be the answer. Answer is C. This was an easy question, because almost 3/4 of the students got this right, who answered got this right. So this, according to me, was easy question. The next question, just excuse me. Yeah. So next question is, what statement can best fit in the place marked as 1? So this is the place marked as 1. So when such a statement is missing at the beginning of the paragraph, we need to know what was given before and what is following next. So what was given before this paragraph is that is that the child that the children are considered as human becomings. They are not yet considered as fully grown adult. They are considered as human becoming. In fact, one scientist also calls them defective adults and not complete adults. Then there is a blank, and then for one, Western culture prizes autonomy. So this actually goes on to give me a dimension of why there is this belief that children are defective adults, not yet fully grown up. So anything that tells me or that helps me to establish cause and effect relationship between this paragraph and this paragraph, the fifth paragraph, gives me the answer, because for one is the keyword here. For one means it is telling me something. For one, this is going to happen, right? And if I look at it, for one, Western culture prizes autonomy, which places children at disadvantage. So whatever thing was mentioned, this looks like an explanation of that thing, why a particular thing is happening. So let us see, why should children respond to this defective adult tag? So A says that why should children respond to this defective adult tag? Is there anything mentioned in fourth or fifth paragraph about children responding when they are called as defective adult? This is completely out of purview. Out of purview. So not the answer. Why might this be? Why might this be looks a very good choice. Why might this be? Because it gives me the statement tells me why this situation is existing. So this looks a good choice, but let me look at the other options also. How can children become autonomous? Now, previously there was no such thing about autonomy being mentioned, and I am trying to find one sentence which act as a bridge between fourth paragraph and fifth paragraph. Now there was nothing mentioned about autonomy, so this too can't be the answer. This is the answer which act as a bridge. So why might this be? And the cause follows, that why this situation is existing. Fifth paragraph gives me the reason of why it is existing. So right answer is option number B. This is a moderate level question because around 55% of these students got this right. So not a very difficult question if somebody understands the role that a particular sentence plays. Next. Now, this is a very difficult question, and very surprisingly, because I thought that many should get it right. What can be said about the general perception of adults towards children's capacity? Now, guys, where is children's capacity mentioned in this paragraph? And the perception of adults. So this is where this is the paragraph where you need to focus on. Adults underestimate children's capacities in general. In general, they underestimate, and particularly when the capacity is related to about serious thought. So in general, they underestimate, and particularly on serious thought. And why? It's given our perception of children are largely governed by developmental preconceptions. So we have some pre-concept of about the children, and this preconception is called as developmental preconception. Developmental preconception means children are not really fully developed, and this is our perception. This is our perception, right? So what will be the answer? It is our perception that children are like this, biased. Looks a good choice. Dismissive. Now many students mark dismissive. No, it is not the answer. What do we mean by dismissive? Dismissive means they are outrightly rejecting that they don't have capacity. That is dismissive, right? This is an extreme word to say. Just because here dismissed words was used, this was a scrambled option. I picked it up because I knew that few will fall into trap, but I'm surprised that many students mark dismissive. Dismissive is an extreme word to use it. They are not dismissive about the capacity. They are underestimating the capacity. Underestimating and dismissive are two different things, and on the basis of their perception, so they are biased. They think that children are not yet fully developed, so that's a biased, right? Indifferent and curious, few students have marked indifferent also. Once again, the adults are not indifferent, and curious certainly is the option that has no the adults are not curious, it's the children who are curious about the thing. So again, curiosity was mentioned in the passage, but this again is a scrambled option, not with respect to children. So the answer is biased, and this was a difficult question because very few people got it right. But I hope that now you understand that there is a difference between dismissive and being biased. Okay. This was a moderate level question. Which of the following can be inferred about author's position? Now I have to think about author's position. One, author agrees that children can't be fully independent and because of this their ideas are given less values. Yeah, this is directly given in the last paragraph, right? And author has given reason. This is the reason why children are taken not seriously. So this definitely is one inference that we can draw. Inference, what does inference means? Inference means something mentioned in the passage, but in a slightly different words, Second, author believes that children are defective adults. Now, this is a trap. This is not what author believes. Author has simply quoted one scientist. This scientist has called children defective adults. It's not that author believes. In fact, author opposes this belief. Author is saying that let us not think them as a mediocre thinker, right? So this is not the inference. Answer is only one. And this was again a moderate level question because almost 50-60% of these students got it right. Right. So that is it for today. I hope that you are clear with the explanations of the passage. Thank you very much.